Hey folks, my name is Mo Amir and this is Van Color, British Columbia's bona fide culture and politics TV talk show. Tonight, let's talk social media. Just how private are your private direct messages on social media sites? Is Facebook selling your private DMs as a way to generate ad revenue? Here to discuss is a very special guest. She's an American engineer and scientist, informally known as the Facebook whistleblower. Her revelations included how Facebook was seemingly aware of the damage that its products were doing to the mental health of teenagers, how the platform fanned ethnic violence around the world while failing to curb misinformation, disinformation, and threats to election security. You've seen her on Real Time with Bill Maher and The Daily Show. She's testified in front of the U.S. Congress. Here, via internet magic, she is Frances Haugen. Frances, thank you so much for beaming in tonight.
I'm happy to be here. My pleasure.
Now, there was a recent allegation that Meta, which includes Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, was basically selling its users' private direct messages to Netflix. Meta denied this allegation, but is there any indication that Meta shares or sells private messages from Facebook, Instagram, or I guess even WhatsApp to advertisers or other companies?
One of the things that I think is important to note about this lawsuit is that it's a class action lawsuit in the United States, but it refers to behavior that was taking place in the past. And one of the things that most people are not aware of is that Facebook has a history of engaging with data sharing practices with other companies. So going back all the way to, like, it was around 2010, 2011 with their Beacon project. So they had huge amounts of data transfer between other advertisers and the platform. They have a history of doing these kinds of data sharing agreements, but there's a difference between sending, say, stats to Netflix on how many people are talking about a TV show and sending the direct messages themselves. It's also important to note that over the course of the last years, Meta has made a big push to go towards end-to-end encrypted messaging. And so it is very unlikely that these practices are continuing today. And as a general pattern in the past, when Meta has been sued about data privacy issues, they generally have changed their behavior afterwards. It would be nice to see them do it more proactively, but it is unlikely they are selling your messages today.
Okay, fair enough. Now, I know that there are some distinctions in the law depending on the country, but if you are a user of a social media platform, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever, is there a fair expectation that your private messages are kept private, or does the social media platform own those messages and can do whatever they want with them?
One of the things that people are usually shocked by is if you actually go read your terms of service, the agreements that each platform you engage with make with you are very different. They can range from thousands of words on Signal, which is a open source encrypted form of messaging, hundreds of word agreement on like what behavior is acceptable, to 15,000 words if you go to things like Microsoft products. Inside those agreements, you can have very, very different conditions. So to generalize across all products, it's very difficult to. But the last thing I would leave you with is, this is why having national regulations matter. Canada is right now considering something called the Online Harms Bill, which would give us the right to ask questions like this. Right now, we don't really have exhaustive rights to say, hey, what data do you have on us? How are you using it? How might that data be misused? With something like an Online Harms Bill, Canadians could have that right.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's even a surprise to me. I didn't realize that the government can't even find this out from these tech giants, which seems like a big glaring hole in the internet's ecosystem. And I suppose that the terms of service and those conditions that we all just kind of click through, I feel like they're probably complicated by design so that no one actually reads them, right?
They're written at an 11th or 12th grade level with lots of legalese. And scholars have hypothesized that part of the reason why they do make them so obtuse is so that people don't read through them. One of the things to remember is that these products are built out of the United States. And while Canadians have a higher expectation of privacy than people in the United States, the products aren't necessarily designed such that those expectations are universal. Even in the US, things like the FTC or the FCC, which oversee things like Facebook, they usually can't act until a whistleblower comes forward. And so remember, we need to have systems in place that give the public the right to ask for information and get it, and not just have to rely on effectively marketing messages from these companies.
Interesting. Now, in the meantime, if you are a user of social media, as most of us are, is there anything you can do to protect your privacy aside from not being on social media?
Well, remember, you don't have to do messaging on the same platforms that you do, say, consume videos. One of the things that I always encourage people for, as I've mentioned before, even in this interview, this platform called Signal. So Signal, like, the signal on the internet, Signal for your phone. Signal is an open source. That means anyone can go and look at the code, peer-to-peer encrypted chat. And it's one of the only things that, say, like the State Department in the United States uses, or like people in the US military often use it. And that's because when you have code that everyone can look at, people can know, oh, this product actually says what it means. We don't have that same level of transparency for any of the major social media platforms.
Wow. Okay. So basically what I'm hearing is don't expect privacy in terms of your DMs from those social media platforms. There are some alternatives like
Don't
Signal.
do things at risk. Remember, we're relying on effectively marketing messages. We haven't been given the code base for these platforms. They have a history of making big claims that later are proved to not be true. When we rely on open source software, remember, it comes from a nonprofit. They're not there to make sure you stay on as long as possible, show you as many ads as possible. It's something that is built for the public, by the public, paid for by donations from people like the public.
Well, thank you so much for this. I think this is definitely illuminating for a lot of us, especially if we haven't thought about it and certainly had that expectation of privacy, but then finding out that we don't even really know. So, Frances, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Folks, you know her as the Facebook whistleblower. She is Frances Haugen. Be sure to pick up her memoir, The Power of One, wherever you get your books. Now, after some business, how is Meta's news ban in Canada, where Canadians can't even share news links on Facebook or Instagram, affected newsrooms across the country? We'll talk about it up next.